Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Hannah, and I'm making this video to talk about just um, what to eat. And it's obviously a very complex topic, and there's no one size fits all. What might work for one person might not work for the other. So I would always recommend that you try different things, experiment with your body, and see what works for you. Don't blindly kind of follow any one specific diet. You need to see what works for you. So this video is just meant to give you like basic guidelines about what you should avoid. And I recommend generally a whole foods diet. Try to avoid processed food as much as you can, and most of your diet should be comprised of fresh ingredients, which are which just have one ingredient, and then you can put that together to make a meal. And I'm not here to demonize any food group. I just want to tell you what is real and what is not, because these days the nutritional world is really confusing, and there's so much conflicting evidence as well. So I think the closer we go to nature, the better it is for our health. So Mother Nature is always going to nourish us, like no matter what. Fresh, local, seasonal foods that comes without labels is the best for your health. And in Ayurveda, that's called sattvic. Um, However, if you are only eating vegetables, obviously you might not get the other components of the diet that you need. And I'll come to that, and I'm gonna go through different food groups that you need in order to have a balanced diet. And also note that your balance is different from somebody else's balance, and you should be aware of that. And also your genes, your culture, your heritage, all of these things are important. What you grew up eating, the tastes that you've developed in the womb while growing up. So it's important to kind of cater to all of these factors. So this is just a visual representation of what a diet should look like, basic. And this might differ from person to person, as I said, but basically I'm just going to talk about the three food groups: carbs, protein, and fat. And then you also have your fiber from plant-based foods, and you also have like herbs and teas and things like that. If you have a variety of foods in your diet, I mean variety of seasonal um, vegetables, herbs, spices, um, and even different kinds of proteins in your diet, that will be a healthy diet. They say eat the rainbow. That's what I always recommend. Eat a variety of different foods, and you'll get a lot of macro and micronutrients. But we're just going to go over different kinds of macronutrients to see what's better for you and what's might be a bit worse. So, number one, I'm going to talk about carbs. So, in today's world, we see a lot of people having diabetes, obesity, heart attack, stroke, blood pressure, um, anxiety, depression. And obviously, these are complex diseases. It can't be reduced to just one diet or one lifestyle. But when it comes to things like weight gain and diabetes and polycystic ovary, the main culprit does tend to be insulin resistance. And again, this can be caused not just due to diet, but I'm just going to focus on diet here. Maybe I'll make another video about other lifestyle issues that can cause insulin resistance. But generally, I would always recommend to reduce refined sugars in your diet. You don't want to have too many carbs in general. And instead of refined sugars, you can go for unrefined sugars, which are richer in minerals. Things like raw honey, for example, has a lot of enzymes, vitamins, but obviously all of these in moderation. Just because jaggery is healthier than refined sugar doesn't mean that you should be having a lot of it. And if you're diabetic or if you have polycystic ovary or something like that, then I would um, recommend reducing sugars, including the natural ones, and go for sweet herbs that are more natural, like licorice root, stevia. These you can use that to sweeten your teas. Now for grains and starches, um, these are good. Have a variety of them, but don't overdo it. Like if you see a lot of people in India, they have tummy. They have a big tummy. That's a sign of insulin resistance, and often the reason for that is overconsumption of carbs and obviously sedentary lifestyle as well. But I'm not saying carbs are bad. You need carbs, and they are a good source of energy. But carbs should not be the main component of your diet. It should be other things. So when it comes to grains, grains are best digested when sprouted or fermented or soaked. Okay, that means things like sourdough, things like sprouted whole grains. Um, and if you pressure cook it, it makes it even easier to digest. And yeah, generally avoid having too many carbohydrates. So lentils and beans are extremely nutritious, but they're hard to digest. So if you are not used to eating lentils and you suddenly start eating like 3 meals of it in a day, you're gonna have a lot of gas and a lot of digestive issues, which is why I would recommend increasing it slowly and having a little bit each day because these are really rich in fiber and even have protein and healthy carbs. And the thing with lentils is you need to prepare them properly. The canned ones are usually not soaked for long enough, which makes it harder to digest. If you can sprout them, soak them overnight, and then cook them, that would be best. And if you've batch prepped a bunch of fresh lentils, you can freeze them because freezing preserves nutrients and enzymes and keeps things fresh as opposed to just keeping things in the fridge. So go for lentils and beans, they're really good for you and have a variety of them. Nuts and seeds also very nutritious, very delicious. Have a little bit each day. Include a variety of them. They're rich in minerals, vitamins, and you can use it in salads. You can use it. You can just have it as a snack. Even really good for you. And even nuts, don't overdo it because you might need to soak them in order for them to be a bit more digestible. But now studies have been showing that even if you don't soak them, they still have a lot of health benefits. So include a variety of them. Now let's come to fats. So we dealt with natural fats, nuts and seeds, very good for you. This is the only thing that I recommend avoiding: refined vegetable oils. Refined vegetable oils are one of the unhealthiest foods that are present in the modern diet. And there's multiple reasons for that. It's processed at an extremely high temperature, which means that they are already rancid, they're oxidized. And when they go into your body, the oil, the fat gets converted into a trans fat, and it's just going to wreak havoc in your system if you consume too much of this over time. So always go for cold pressed oils. So things like rape, and the thing is that these are present in every processed food in the supermarket, and often it's the refined versions that are present. So if you're using like cold pressed rapeseed oil for salad dressing, that's fine. But the ones in the supermarket, the rapeseed oils are refined at high temperatures, and they use a lot of chemical solvents in order to extract it and then deodorize it, and it's so different from the initial product. Like soybean, for example, is actually a source of protein. How do you extract oil from it? Even corn is a carbohydrate. So just think about how vegetable oils are made and how it'll affect your body. Try try to cut vegetable oil from your diet for a few weeks and see how you feel. And trust me, you'll feel better because vegetable oil is one of the most inflammatory substances on the planet, like food wise. That being said, once in a while, if you eat it, don't stress too much about it because stress is also not a good thing. So, yeah, don't have fake butter, margarine, and all these low fat spreads. Those are just hydrogenated vegetable oils, and there's often a lot of emulsifiers, preservatives, and things added in there which are not good for gut health. So, if you want to eat butter, if you want a vegan version, go for coconut oil. You can use it for baking and things like that. Otherwise, just eat the real butter. It's good for you. So, what oils should you use? Healthy fats. Healthy fats are fats that our ancestors used to eat. So, if you look at people like 200 years ago, they were much healthier and they didn't eat a lot of processed food that was available to us today. Most processed food is just a combination of refined flour, refined sugar, and vegetable oil. So, that's the only thing I'm asking you not to have. So, when it comes to healthy fats, cold pressed oils are really good. Make sure that any oil that you buy, even if you're buying sunflower or rapeseed, make sure that you're buying a cold pressed oil, ideally organic, but that's fine. Extra virgin olive oil is the best. You can use it for up to medium heat of cooking, and it tastes delicious. It's so healthy for you. I mean, the Mediterranean people drizzle so much olive oil on their food, and it's really healthy. Even if you consume it in caloric excess, it has been shown to actually cause weight loss, and it has a lot of heart healthy polyphenols as well. Other cold pressed oils I've mentioned here, some of them used in India, like cold pressed peanut oil, sesame oil, mustard oil, palm fruit oil. This is a controversial one because the sourcing can be a bit dodgy. It might be coming from deforestation in the Indonesian forests. So make sure that it's a sustainably sourced palm fruit oil if you're using that, but try to go for a locally sourced healthy fat. Like if you're living in Europe, go for olive oil, easy, or butter or ghee. And animal fats are healthy for you, unlike what the diet industry has convinced us. Animal fat from a healthy animal is better than vegetable oil. But obviously the proportions of saturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, all of that differs from person to person. I mean, from oil to oil. So yeah, duck fat is quite high in monounsaturated fat, but ghee and beef dripping more high in saturated fat. But all of these are basically good for your gut and also your brain. And remember that every cell in your body is literally made of fat. It's lined by fat. Every hormone in your body, like so many hormones in your body, are made from cholesterol. Vitamin D is made from cholesterol. So you need fats in your diet. That's why low fat diet is not good for you in the long term. Healthy fat diet is what you want to have. Um, so for high heat, coconut oil and ghee is a good option. But generally, I don't recommend too much of high heat cooking because it just damages the enzymes and kind of reduces the freshness of the food. So always go for low and slow cooking. Let's talk about meat. Is meat healthy? Um, there's a lot of plant-based diets being promoted nowadays, and look, if you're gonna eat Beyond Meat and vegan sausages and vegan bacon and things like that instead of lentils, legumes, tempeh, vegetables, then eating meat is probably better than eating the fake stuff. Like even fake egg, and I've seen the ingredients for them. There's like 20 ingredients, like methyl cellulose, like just random things that are made in a factory so far from nature. I would never recommend eating any of those vegan meat alternatives. They're definitely not healthy, and I don't think I need to go further into that because it should be intuitive that those things are so highly processed. um so sausages, ham, and bacon, processed meats, highly processed meats, is something I would not recommend too much. I mean, I would ideally not eat it at all because the problem is that the processed meats have nitrates in them, which is associated with cancer, which is why so many studies say that processed meat and red meats cause cancer, but they have clubbed red meat and processed meat together. So, and often these studies have also seen that the kind of people that they choose for these studies are those that don't eat enough vegetables. They might be eating a lot of fried food, they might be eating out a lot, you know, that kind of stuff anyway is going to cause worse health outcomes. But if you eat meat that is healthy, you know, you eat a variety of it, it's fine. Just don't eat the ones with added preservatives. And red meat, it's not so bad for you as they say it is. It's actually a really nutritious source of protein. And what I would say is don't overdo muscle meat. Don't just have like a chicken breast. Don't just have a drumstick or something, because that is associated with increased methionine levels, which can cause heart attacks in the future. So try to have a um, variety of cuts, just like our ancestors did, and also have have no, eat nose to tail, eat the collagen, like the skin, the giblets, and then bone broth. Bone broth is one of the most healing substances. It's really good for your gut. It's really good for your brain. Really good for your skin. So, maybe you can cook rice in bone broth. It's delicious and it's super nutritious. Um, eggs. Eggs are delicious, healthy, and don't be scared of eating eggs. Egg yolks are one of the most nutrient dense substances on the planet, and it has cholesterol. And like I mentioned, cholesterol is actually a good thing. We need cholesterol. So there is a difference in quality between organic free range eggs and traditional barn eggs. So there's more omega 3 fats present in the free range ones. And omega 3 is really good for you. You need omega 3s in your diet, which we'll come to next. Omega 3s are present in fish and seafood. Another source is plant based, I will say, is flax seeds and chia seeds. So if you're vegetarian, you might want to include those in order to get your omega 3s. Um, as for fish and seafood, again, variety. Have a variety of wild caught seafood and avoid farmed seafood, because farmed seafood is again fed with a lot of antibiotics and it's high in omega 6. So you want to go for things like wild salmon, mackerel, sardines. Oysters are really good for you nutritionally, one of the most nutrient dense substances in the food world. And then seaweeds as well. So if you are vegetarian, then try to include some seaweed in your diet. It's rich in iodine and selenium as well, which supports your thyroid. Dairy. So a lot of people do say dairy is inflammatory and not tolerated by many people. And I tend to agree with that. The reason is that conventional dairy is not really healthy. It has again been processed. Um, it's homogenized and pasteurized, which makes it hard for us to digest. So our ancestors, everyone had a cow or a goat at home, and they would drink raw milk, which contained the enzymes that help us to digest milk. And it also contains probiotics like lactobacillus, which helps us to digest milk. When you remove those substances by pasteurization, it becomes harder to digest. And then homogenization, which is even worse, is where we dissolve the cream of the milk, press it under a machine, and kind of it gets dissipated, and the structure of the fat globules gets distorted. So the fat in milk is super nourishing, which is why like every mammal has milk, right? Because it's very high in these healthy fats that nourish the baby. It helps with the developing brain, it helps with the gut, and etc. Um, what homogenization does is turns that healthy fat from dairy into a really inflammatory fat, which is why some people even might get diarrhea from drinking milk, which is why I will never recommend homogenized milk. Fermented foods. Fermented dairy is much better alternative, much easier to digest. Things like kefir, yogurt, Greek yogurt, good source of protein, quite delicious, quite good overall. And for those who don't tolerate dairy that much, try goat and sheep dairy. It has less A1 protein, which tends to be more inflammatory. And then there's A2 dairy from certain breeds of cows as well. And for nut milks are fine if they have just nuts, water, and salt as the ingredient. Nuts and water, that's fine. Soaked nuts. But many of them have gums and emulsifiers and things, which I don't recommend. And oat milk, I do not recommend oat milk because oat is a grain, and it when you kind of blend oats, it converts the complex fiber and the fibers and complex sugars and starches into simple sugars. So oat milk is kind of like drinking sugar, and additionally, most oat milks have vegetable oil in them. So don't drink oat milk. I'd also like to add that low fat dairy often spikes your blood sugar, so try to go for just conventional, normal fat, unprocessed, closest to source dairy. Um, don't fall for the low fat trap. However, once in a while, if you want to have like a higher boost of protein and you have something low fat, that's fine, because if they're making it from skimmed milk, which is a natural separation process, then that's fine once in a while. But you don't need to be very particular about having just low fat dairy. So soy is actually good for you, good for gut health, good source of protein, but better tolerated by East Asians. And it's not for everybody. Good sources of soy are the unprocessed or fermented versions from non-GMO organic soy, ideally, because otherwise soy does contain a lot of pesticide residues. Yeah, so edamame, fermented tofu and tempeh, fermented miso, all of these are pretty good sources of soy and good sources of protein as well. Um, Traditionally fermented soy sauce or tamari is better for you than the generic ones. Soy protein isolate, commonly found in protein bars, that is a processed food, but it's not as dangerous as others, so it's okay in moderation. Um, Everything is okay in moderation. Soy milk. Soy milk, if it's from organic soybeans, it's fine, but overconsumption of soy milk, I would not recommend because it kind of breaks the structure of the soy and releases the polyunsaturated fats from the cell wall into the milk. So it does have a higher level of PUFAs, but you want to just reduce your um, vegetable oils in the first place. Instead of soy milk, maybe you can go for nut milks. That might be better if you're not consuming milk. Another thing that I recommend cutting down on is things that come in packets and they claim to be healthy. They're not. Real healthy food is fresh from nature, from the source. So things like protein bars and a lot of protein powders have a lot of preservatives, artificial sweeteners like sucralose, which is bad for your gut health. Um, they often contain vegetable oils, things like huel, and I've been seeing just like bottles of nutritionally complete meals. And usually the first few ingredients are vegetable oils and lecithins and a bunch of things. I don't know where it's coming from. If you want to have um, a meal replacement, you can get a good quality protein powder, add some fruits, maybe veg, and maybe some nut milk or normal milk, and make a smoothie. That would be a better alternative than having these processed liquids in a plastic bottle pretending to be foods. Don't fall for that marketing trap. It's not good for you. Um, Artificial sweeteners, I would avoid them as much as possible. Sucralose and aspartame, acesulfame, all of these have been actually shown to mess up your insulin response as well as it kind of confuses your body. Your body thinks it's getting sugar, but it's not. And it also affects the gut microbiome. But stevia is something that's kind of okay in small amounts. Stevia and erythritol, like these sugar alcohols, they can cause a bit of digestive side effects, but they're better than saccharin, acesulfate, and sucralose and things like that. But you don't want to have too much of that. You don't want to have it every day, right? If you're diabetic, then you can take like stevia to sweeten, but I would not have too much of sweet things to begin with. And protein powders, there's vegan ones and there's animal-based ones. So grass-fed collagen. Collagen is a really good supplement that you can include in your diet. Um, Gelatin, casein, whey. Casein and whey are vegetarian, high in protein, used by a lot of gym bros. Um, that's fine. Go for good quality ones with one ingredient only. Plant-based ones, hemp proteins are good. Organic plant-based proteins. Um, the problem with plant-based protein is that they have been tested to be high in heavy metals. So you want to be a bit wary of that and make sure you get a good quality brand of plant-based protein if you are taking it. But most of your protein should be coming from your diet. You shouldn't be like taking protein shakes every meal. That means that you need to have a look at your diet again. Herbs, spices, fruit and veg. Herbs and spices, use generously. They're delicious. They're really good for you, rich in antioxidants and rich in micronutrients. And when you cook your vegetables or your grains, use healthy fats, use herbs and spices, and that'll make you enjoy the process of cooking as well as the meal itself. Eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. Variety is very important. Herbal teas are also good. Herbal teas are good for digestion, sleep, metabolic support. Fenugreek is good for blood sugar control. Then chamomile is good for sleep. Peppermint is good for general gut health. There's a lot of herbs that have a lot of properties, but take as per what you require and what makes you feel good. So coming back to a healthy plate, um, most of your plate should be fresh foods, non-starchy vegetables, cooked. Some vegetables have to be cooked, like cruciferous ones, cooked in healthy fats and spices. Otherwise, raw, dressed with a nice salad dressing, which is again rich in spices and condiments of your choice. Um, Carbs, whole grain, starchy veg. Protein, get a high quality protein in there and make sure you have around 20 to 30 grams of protein in a meal. Protein helps with satiety and it also helps you like maintain muscle mass and keeps you full for longer. Protein and fat. So protein, fat, and fiber. Focus on these three things in your meal and then add a bit of carbs in there. That's how you should be building each meal: protein, fat, fiber. And you will be guaranteed to stay full, and your energy levels will be good as well because your blood sugar levels will be in control. Now, what you eat is important, but it's also important how you eat. The food industry and the diet industry has made things so complicated that so many young women develop eating disorders and have such a complicated relationship with food, like counting calories all the time. Counting calories all the time is probably counterproductive. It increases your stress. It makes you focus too much on food. You're thinking about food all the time. Well, how many calories did I consume? This, that. I'm not saying that there is obviously a rough guideline of how many calories we need, but if we are conscious and we listen to our hunger signals, we eat when we're hungry, we stop when we're full, then we will not be eating too many calories to begin with. If you're snacking a lot, that means that you're not eating enough at your meals. You're not eating enough protein, fiber, and healthy fat. You need to focus on fixing those issues first instead of counting every single calorie because that's going to stress you out and it's not a sustainable thing in the long term. It might help in the short term to give you an idea of how many calories you need, but calorie counting in the long term is not good, especially for those with history of eating disorders and complicated relationships with food. It's important to know where your food comes from, and the lesser number of people there are in between your meal and the source, the better. So, straight from the source, like if you forage something in the park or the forest, if you know what you're doing, that will that you know where that grew. You know there was no pesticide. It's healthy soil. It's good for you. It feels good, and it's nourishing in an emotional way. If you're eating avocados from Mexico, where people are dying because of drug cartels controlling the avocado market, what I mean is you need to be conscious of where your food is coming from. I think that's really important, which is why I always focus on locally sourced, sustainable foods, ideally straight from a farmer. You know, express gratitude for your meals. Take a few breaths before your meals. Take a few deep breaths and say, "Thank you to the farmers who harvested this. Thank you to whoever prepared this food for me. I'm so grateful that I have food on my plate." We need to realize that there are people starving, people who don't have access to food. And then in the Western world, for people to obsess so much over calories and protein and this and that, we need to recognize that we do have a privilege. And we need to express gratitude for it. And that's why we also need to respect our body, listen to our body. Eat when we're only hungry. Don't eat because you're bored, you know? And stop eating when you're full. Don't overeat. Your body is not a dustbin. You don't need to, you might feel guilty for wasting food, obviously. Try not to waste. Try to prepare mindfully. Try to prepare enough food. Try to eat fresh. But if there's a bit of excess, you don't need to force yourself to eat it. And try to fast. What I mean by that is don't eat dinner too late, because we need a healthy amount of um, fasting period where we're giving our digestion a break. I know intermittent fasting is quite popular, but I don't recommend skipping breakfast for women, especially because in the morning our cortisol is quite high, and when we eat, when our blood sugar goes low, our cortisol goes up. So if we want to have a stable blood sugar, we should have a breakfast which is low in sugar, so that our energy levels and our blood sugars are stable throughout the day. Which is why skipping breakfast might actually increase cortisol and thereby increase our blood sugar, because we need some sugar. Sugar is actually what our body needs as energy. So try not to skip breakfast, but have an early dinner, and that'll help you create a healthy fast of like 12 hours maybe. And if you're feeling hungry at late at night, that means that you didn't eat enough at dinner. You can have a small snack, that's fine. You don't need to make a big deal of it. You don't need to feel guilty for eating food or listening to your body. Please listen to your body and know that one diet does not fit all. And I hope that that's the main thing that you got from it. And I hope that this video helped. Um, I'd also I'd also like to talk about the psychology of eating. That's a whole other topic, and maybe I'll cover it in another video. But the purpose of this video is just to tell you to eat real foods and nourish your body, listen to your body, be more in touch with your body, and just appreciate the fact that you have food on your plate every day. And have a variety of foods, have a variety of different kinds of plant-based foods. If you eat meat, have different varieties of meat in your diet, and know where your food is coming from, and make sure you're having enough protein, enough healthy fat, fiber. Focus on those three things and then add some carbs on top of that, so that your blood sugars are balanced. And you will notice that you feel much better and your energy levels are better, and you might even lose weight. And yeah, I hope that this video was helpful, and um, sending you lots of love.